Bryce Canyon by Larry Hall Sr. The next day after spending that wonderful night in Zion National Park, we took our ride to our next destination. Driving a few hours, we got to our next destination. With a speed limit of 80 allowed me a little leeway with the turbo BMW I had rented. Next stop, Cedar City, Utah. It is a small town about 40 miles from Bryce National Park. The hotel we stayed at was small, but the people were very friendly. We had taken the room for 3 nights, and when we arrived it wasn't ready, but upon finding that it was our anniversary when we returned, after getting something to eat, they had upgraded us to a suite. These pictures are the drive to the canyon from Cedar City. The roads were 2-lane and the view was amazing. It was in September, so fall was rapidly approaching the state. The trees were colored with all of the yellow and gold that nature could provide. Except for the evergreen trees, which were royally displayed as a background accent for the fall foliage. The air was cool and clear, and from the passes we could see the valleys and surrounding mountains in all their beauty and majesty. On our way we passed a sheep farmer on the side of the road. I wanted some photos, and I introduced myself to the man and asked him a few questions. Being from Georgia, we don't see a lot of sheep, and he was kind enough to spend a few moments with me. There were over 1,000 head of sheep in the field, and he said that he had another 1,000 on another pasture. The pictures don't do justice to the spectacle. He was Mormon, but you would not know by anything he was wearing, but maybe I assumed every Mormon wore an Amish hat and beard. But I found out that Amish were Mennonites, not Mormon, more like the Puritans. I guess you would call me a Southern Baptist. But my dad always said that as long as we accept God as our Savior, denomination was irrelevant. God had many faces, not all will be like ours. Putting a face to God is like waterproofing a duck. Just not necessary or right. During this time of being isolated from nature and one another by something mankind had no control over, we forget the simple pleasures of seeing something with our own eyes and senses. No 3D tour or virtual visit will ever replace the feeling of the air, the sounds of the wind and wildlife, the beating of your heart and loss of breath from the sheer size and majesty of what is before you. No computer, no video, no soundscape, and no virtual reality can replace the human sight and human heart to appreciate what we missed while being isolated from all this. I would recommend, when this is all over, if it can ever be over, you go and enjoy the wonders that are far and near until we can't anymore. If you look, you will see pictures of the hoodoos from the entrance to Bryce Canyon. The wind-worn sandstone and scraggly trees that line the roads and valleys going into the canyon's entrance. Upon arriving, you will have to take a bus because parking in the park is severely scarce, so if you show up any time after 20 minutes of the park opening, it will probably be the bus for you. This is not, however, a problem, as it will take you to several places you want to go, and you can walk to the others if you are willing and able. We were notified that the last bus would leave the park for the parking area at 5 o'clock. It was just after 12, so we felt that we could get a cursive look and come back the next day to spend some serious time there. After exiting the bus, we walked over to where the trailhead to the canyon started. It was little over a half a mile to the edge, and we enjoyed the scenery and the people. There was every language being spoken, and everyone seemed to smile. I know a little Spanish, but Japanese and Chinese, any dialect, is a complete mystery to me, but I love the cadence and lilt from it. Almost like music or poetry. I was engrossed taking pictures of everything. Trees, flowers, rocks, even clouds and pathways. I was surprised when we arrived at the edge that there were no barriers or fences. You just walked up to the edge and there it was. I couldn't help but wonder how many people a year fall into the canyon, but this didn't bother me much. I loved the unaltered views and expanse of the canyon, shaped like a huge oblong bowl with sandstone stalactites jutting up from the canyon floor. They are called hoodoos, and they are what remain of an prehistoric sandstone mountain. The softer stone worn away by millennia of winds and rains, while the harder stone is worn at a much slower rate. The color ranged from a dirt brown to lighter sand color and back to a rust orange and deep rust red because of the iron content in the stone and lands. The trees are mostly evergreen that grow in bunches and singles all around and within the canyon. In the distance we could see some distant mountains that already had some snow on them. There was a trail that led around the rim. We walked and saw trees whose trunks were bowed in the direction that the wind had shaped them. Some hanging precariously over the edge, looking like they would fall any minute. And we were told that in many cases we were right. Several fell every year, and the rim was eroding ever so slowly, but still eroding. We eventually got to Bryce Point, and we took a selfie. There is a picture somewhere here. We then walked around the rim till we got to a point where there were buildings and a path that led to the bottom of the hoodoos. The sign said 2.5 miles round trip. We decided that it was only 2 p.m. so we had more than enough time to get back to the bus stop by 5. We started down and it was not a disappointment. The trail was steep but not very, and it wound around upon itself like a snake trying to ball up upon itself. We took our time and moved steadily downward, me all the time taking copious photos. It was an amazing adventure to the bottom. Small passages and the sun played heaven with the various orange and rusty walls and openings. We finally reached the bottom and it was only 2:45 p.m., plenty of time. We explored the pathway, saw some chipmunks and stones stacked up upon one another that didn't look like they could be standing. On the trail we were approached by a group of 5 girls I was later to find out was Chinese. They asked the one who spoke very passable English, how long we had been married. We responded that we had been together for 35 years, which was responded to by several giggles and oohs and ahas. They chatted like teenagers, which was not unusual as they were teenagers. They then asked about our children and grandchildren. W told them we had 4 children and 12 grandchildren, which brought on gasps and giggles. Gratefully no one pointed. I wasn't sure if it was amazement that we had been together so long, and been so proliferate in our reproduction, or if they were figuring out that someone that looks like me had the courage to have children. They asked if they could take a picture with us and I happily said yes. I also have a picture of them here in this video. We ran into several times along the trail, and we were always greeted with smiles and some giggling. They were great ambassadors for their group and we enjoyed them immensely. Okay, getting close to 3:30 p.m. Then it came. The trail up. Oh my. It looked exactly like the one going down except we could not see the top. We drank some water and contemplated going back the way we had came, but thought it would be faster to go up here. After all, it was 5 miles from the bus station to the parking lot and we were already feeling our age a little bit. We started walking. And we walked, and walked. And walked some more. All the time struggling to get one foot in front of the other, and this was much steeper than the downside. At least it seemed so. We were sure that at this time we would die here and our bones would be another sight along the trail to the top. We walked, then we sat. As Shari's knee was swelling. We walked some more, then we sat. Then. We walked and then we sat. Then. We walked, then we sat some more. Then we finally turned a curve and saw the building at the top with a railed walkway on the side. Knowing then we would make it somehow, we felt rejuvenated. That was until we passed someone going down who said we only had little over a half mile to go. It was 4:15 p.m. Okay, fear took over, but we walked the rest of the way as fast as we could. We finally got to the top and went straight to the bus stop. We had to wait for a few minutes, but the bus taking us back to the main station came. We got to the station and got on the bus back to the parking lot. As we got off, we heard the driver say to some people who were waiting that that would be the last bus from the park and that anyone still in the park had to walk or drive their own cars back to the lot. And that is the story of our adventure in the hoodoos of Bryce National Park, Utah. I know this narration isn't as long as the slideshow, but I didn't want to shorten the pictures to accommodate my speech. Please enjoy the rest of the show.